Welcome to Stoughton Media Access Corporation's Community Forum Show. My name is Steve Kelley and I'll be your host today. Today I have the pleasure of bringing you Bill Gavin. Bill is the author of a book, Pick Up Your Own Brass, and that's Leadership the FBI Way. And Bill is also the former assistant director of the FBI's New York office. And today the subject of the show is to go over the background of the World Trade Center bombing in 1993. So welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you, Steve. It's my pleasure to be back.
We could just jump right in by sharing some pictures that you've brought.
Certainly.
So, Leo, I think we want to say thank you to Leo McGowan. He's our cameraman. And we're going to just start right by zeroing in on a picture that Bill has brought with him. And right now we're looking at one of the pictures. And Bill, would you take over from there?
Surely. This is a photograph of the World Trade Center, 1992, February 26th at noon. This is the way it looked at that particular point in time, the North and the South Towers. And then if we go to the next picture, we're going to be able to show a diagram of those buildings, the inside of those buildings, and maybe I can explain what happened in this bombing. At 12:16 on the 26th of February, the individuals responsible for this bombing, Mohammed Salameh, Mahmoud Abu Halima, Nadaliyad, Ahmad-Ajaj, Ramzi Youssef, Iod Ismail, and Yassin, perpetrated the bombing of the center. They prepared a 1,500-pound ampho bomb, and that's a bomb that's basically made out of fertilizer and fuel oil. And what they did to enhance this bomb is they made homemade nitroglycerin sticks. Also, they put in hydrogen tanks with the bomb to enhance the destructive force of the bomb itself. What they did is they drove that truck. It was a Ryder rental truck, which we'll see later on. They drove the truck into the basement, B1 level of the World Trade Center, the parking area, which is general parking. It also has the parking, secured parking, for 82 cars that belong to the U.S. Secret Service. They parked the Ryder truck, alongside a wall. And you can see in this picture the two trade centers standing straight up in that small building, the Vista Hotel. It kind of looks like a television set there. The Vista Hotel bore the brunt of the upward part of the blast, because the blast occurred on level B2, and you see the big hole underneath that hotel, and the hole keeps going down to the next three levels. And at B5 is a significant level, and we'll show some pictures later on of that level. During the course of this bombing, we had over $600 million worth of damage, 1,000 people injured, and 6 people killed. The five of the people we found fairly soon after the explosion, because they were on the B2 level as well. But one of the individuals killed was an employee of the Trade Center, and he got caught in the explosion and went down through all those holes, and eventually we found his body down at the B5 level. So it took about 3 days in order to get to him. We kept looking to find that the last victim of this horrendous event. When we look at these pictures, I guess we get a rough idea of how badly these people performed. We can go through later on, go through the sequence of events, but this is basically what happened. It was 12:16 when the bomb went off. And one thing I might point out is that down on the where it says the path on the 1, 2, 3, 4th level down, where there's a hole in the ground and some cars parked. Most of the infrastructure for Lower Manhattan, electricity, water, all of the things that one might think of in terms of infrastructure, ran through the trade centers at that point in time. So when that bomb went off, it unleashed almost 2 million gallons of water inside this building. And when a bomb this size goes off, it causes, of course, a lot of smoke and a lot of damage. So they had to shut down the electricity for the entire area because we were extremely worried about the electrocution of the firefighters and the first responders that came into the buildings. So as a result, there was no light, there was a lot of smoke, and people were pouring out of the buildings, escaping at that particular point in time. So that's basically a view of what went on.
So Gina, could you show us the Ryder van? Is that possible on your screen? I know you've got a sequence of them.
This is a picture of what the van actually looked like. Of course, it's not the van itself. We had to rent one to show what the van that was used in this was looked like. We were able to identify this as the area and the van where the destruction took place because it was the vehicle that had sustained total devastation, total destruction. The rest of the vehicles that were impacted by the explosion, of course, had some catastrophic results, but nothing was blown apart like this. So we were able to determine this was the vehicle. The way we were able to determine how to get to this vehicle is there are a number of things. On the rails, we all know that vehicles have have a VIN number on the front window. Well, not only in the window, but they stamp that number on various parts of the vehicle itself. And so we were able to find the rail that had the CVIN, at least the last 8 numbers of the CVIN. We traced that back through the manufacturer of the vehicle.
So maybe we could show some of the parts. Yeah, so tell me what this was.
Those are the parts. That's the coil spring in the front. That was part of the rail above the top of the picture where we identified the confidential VIN. With that said, we went to the manufacturer. That vehicle was sold to Ryder Rental Company in Dallas, Texas. We got to Dallas, had agents go out to Dallas and research that, and they said, no, we no longer have that vehicle. That vehicle has been transferred to Jersey City, New Jersey. So immediately agents from the Newark office of the FBI went out to the Jersey City, New Jersey, and we were able to determine who in fact rented this vehicle. Now, when we
What's this? Let me just interrupt. What is this piece? Do you recall?
That's another piece of the frame
undercarriage,
the undercarriage of the car itself. What we were able to do when we identified the individual who rented it, part of their plan was 2 days before the bombing, which they had scheduled for the 26th because they had exit plans as well. 2 days beforehand, they reported this vehicle stolen in order to cover themselves. And then they called the rental company and said the vehicle was stolen, which of course it wasn't. But when they reported it stolen, they gave, of course, the wrong tag number on the vehicle. So if the New York City Police Department or the state police or the Jersey City Police Department found this van anyplace, they wouldn't recognize it because they had the wrong number, the license plate. In any event, when they reported it stolen after this event, the very next day after the bombing, Mohammed Salameh, who rented the vehicle, contacted the rental agency for the vehicle and said he had reported it stolen. And so the rental agency told him that he had a rebate coming, a $400 rebate, because the vehicle had been stolen and he had already put the money down in cash. We immediately put some agents undercover in the rental agency, and when Mohammed Salameh came back in to get his $400 check, we chatted with him a little bit and to get him to say what happened, and he told every lie that you could possibly tell what happened to the vehicle. And subsequent to that, we gave him a check for $200. We negotiated a $200 refund, and as he walked out the door, he was arrested and brought to the FBI in Manhattan. He was the start of, we were able then to determine where he was, where he lived, what he did, and start to identify his associates, and that's how we got to a number of these people involved.
Tell us a little bit about the excitement of that first break. Well, the first break is actually the part, identifying the parts.
It is. It's such a tragedy, you know, at 12:16, and I don't know if we can zero in on this picture because there is some context to the picture that's here. That hotel, the Vista Hotel that you saw in the diagram photo, this is the grand ballroom of the Vista Hotel. At 12:16, when the bomb went off, this was above the vehicle, and it blew right through the floor, as you can see there. It blew through the floor. At 1 o'clock, that ballroom was due to have over 100 children in there for an affair in the hotel. So it was just one of those things. The children would have been massacred when something like this went off, and that's how we were very, very, very lucky in a picture like this. When we went to go down into the hole in the ground, of course, it had to be vented. I was in the hole somewhere around 4 o'clock that afternoon, and it was just unbelievable, the horror of the whole thing. But having somebody come up with the frame and the VIN to start the project toward the resolution of this whole case, everybody gets excited over that. And the fortunate thing that we have is the FBI has field offices all over this country. It isn't a matter of something that has to be explained, and we have telecommunications and let everybody know what we're looking for, and they know what questions to ask when they get down there. So to have identified this vehicle in Dallas, Texas, and then come back and identify the renter of the vehicle in Jersey City, New Jersey was fantastic. The significance of Dallas, Texas, too, is that during the course of this, when all of these individuals first came into this country, at least two of them, Ahmad Ajaj and Ramzi Youssef, who was the ringleader, when they came into this country, Ahmad Ajaj came in with the plans, with the cookbooks, with all the ingredients that were necessary to make a bomb, how to make a bomb, the precautions necessary in making a bomb. He had all of those, and he was taken in custody by INS in JFK Airport in New York. Parts of those cookbooks and a lot of the information in the cookbooks was also in the possession of Ramzi Youssef. Well, they flew 2 different seats, not talking to each other, and didn't let the authorities know that they were traveling together. Of course, they came first class. Every bomber likes to fly first class. And the horror of this whole thing was that when they took Ajaj into custody, they kept him. He was never out again prior to the bombing. But we monitored all his conversations from prison, because they're all on tape anyway, and he was constantly calling Dallas, Texas again. And in order for him, they were aware that the phone calls would be monitored. So when he's in jail and he wants to talk to Ramzi Youssef, who was in Manhattan, he calls Dallas, and Dallas patches him through, so have a 3-way conversation. So there's no record in the prison of him ever calling his cohort in this crime, Ramzi Youssef. It's an amazing story.
And this picture here is?
That's Mohammed Salameh. He's the individual who rented the truck and wanted to get his $400 back, and that didn't help the cause of the bombers at all. That's what broke the case. He's a Jordanian by birth.
How old was he when he did this?
Well, he was born in 1967, so that was 93, so 20 some odd years old. And I think there's probably another photo might be in there. There he is, Ramzi Youssef. Ramzi Youssef is an interesting character. He's an Iraqi. He received his education in the UK. He spoke perfectly. He spoke King's English. He was a bomber, maybe around the 27, 28 years of age. He and Ajaj had both been in the United States prior to coming here in 1992. They left prior to 1992 to go to Afghanistan border to go to a training camp to learn just what to do, how to make these bombs and destroy the great Satan, the United States of America.
So that is the purpose that they would quote you, is that we need to destroy those who are against our
Anybody
religion?
who is not a radical Muslim extremist needs to die or become one. And there was no other option. There is no other option to this day, and those are the things that are scary. This is Mahmoud Abu Halima. Mahmoud left the country a week after the bombing, and he went to Egypt. And based on our relationships with the Egyptian government at the time, Hosni Mubarak was in power, we went to the Egyptians and asked them, and he's a good-sized guy. It says 6 feet there, but he was almost 6'4", and a kind of a red-haired, freckle-faced Egyptian. And I said, I think even I could find him in Egypt. But the bottom line is, when we went to get him, he was at the Hajj, and so they had to wait till he came back from the pilgrimage. When he came back, we got a call to we could come and pick him up. They took him into custody. The problem that existed was they took him into custody 5 days before they called. And the Egyptians have their own less than nice tactics and interrogation. I flew into Cairo, Egypt on a G4 plane, and made arrangements to pick him up right at the airport. We got out of the plane, but only to exercise outside on the tarmac. We never got into any terminal or anything. And they brought him out. When they brought him out, his head was wrapped like a mummy's head. He had no eyes, he had no ears. He only had two holes cut for his nose and a slit for his mouth. They were into sensory deprivation. When we got him on the plane, it was almost sad. And, he was a horrible person that killed 6 people and did all this as part of the bombing. But they had fairly well abused him as best they could. They put him on a spit, rotated him, and burnt every inch of his body. When we were able to take that mask off, and of course the aroma wasn't that good, but he was just burned in every section of his body. And the best thing that we could do was to get him back to the United States. Usually when we bring him back into custody, we take him into the FBI office, photograph him, and fingerprint him. And I made the decision at that time, don't do that. It's not necessary to do it. We need to bring him to the hospital to get him medical attention, and that we did. He was interviewed on the way back by an FBI agent and a New York City police detective, who were the two that knew most about Mahmoud Abu Halima. So that was about February. That was March of 1993 when we brought him back. We got him fairly soon. This is Nidal Ayad. Nidal Ayad was born in Kuwait, came to the United States, lived in New York State, went back to Kuwait, and then came back into the United States. He was working for Allied Chemical Company, and he is the individual that used the picture of Allied Chemical to obtain all the weapons, to obtain the fuel oil, to obtain the ammonium nitrate, to obtain the nitroglycerin, to obtain all of the kinds of things, the azides and everything that they do to enhance the bomb. He was the individual who was able to do that because he worked at that company, and they shipped it off-site and paid in cash, and they shipped it off-site to a shed in Jersey City they built a bomb, which was a terrible thing. They built a bomb not in the shed. They stored the made bombs in the shed. They built the bomb in an apartment complex on the first floor of an apartment, because they're told always rent the first floor because you can easy to get away. Otherwise, they might trap you in the building. And what they did is they built that bomb in a bedroom, and the aroma of mixing fuel oil and fertilizer is amazing. It's terrible. The other thing that occurred, there was so much evidence in this case that you really didn't have to use it all. Their fingerprints were on everything when we did all the searches. The result of putting sulfuric acid in some of the components burnt holes in the rug. When they were mixing the ammonium nitrate and the fuel oil, it would bubble, and it painted the ceilings, painted the walls, turned the walls different colors. I mean, they ruined this. But then they did it in big plastic 50-gallon barrel containers. And then they would take those out and put them in the shed for storage later on. When they made the nitroglycerin, they kept the nitroglycerin in a refrigerator freezer that was that they brought to the apartment. Of course, then they needed the refrigerator back again because it belonged to one of them in their own home, so they took that back again, and so that, you know, was a nexus to tie all these people together that now had the refrigerator. It was just a horrible set of things that they did to convict themselves, really. We just had to find them, then they offered us all the information we could, unknowingly, of course, to convict them. So that's basically what happened on the front side of that. Now we started the investigation to find the rest of the players. 4 of them we got fairly soon, but Ramzi Youssef that day took off and went to Peshawar. Well, he flew into Pakistan, to Islamabad, then to Peshawar, and then on up in the Khyber Pass into Afghanistan, and we weren't going to get him. It was the days when we couldn't get into Afghanistan. So he went there immediately after the bombing. And then Abdul Rahman Yassin, who was another individual involved, he went to, a week later, he went into Baghdad, as best we can track him, and we haven't seen or heard from him since. We assume that maybe the Iraqis decided he was too much of a liability, and so he's in a desert location someplace and probably sleeping in some sand. And that's basically what happened to him. In trying to find Ramzi Youssef, go right ahead.
So I think, and Gina, if you can kind of zero in on this deck of matches, and I don't know, it may be very difficult to get to the exact spot. I'm going to try to hold it still, but here we go. And Ramzi Youssef, is that it?
Ramzi Youssef, the ringleader of this whole bombing, the main conspirator, the person who put it all together, that assembled the crew that made the bomb, as I said, was a Jordanian and came into this country. In order to catch him, we knew that he was mobile and had many, many different forms of identification. He had like 6 passports and things of that nature. But in order to find him, what we did is we went to Pakistan, and we got the assistance of our flyers and some of the Pakistanis to drop matchbooks. We had his picture on it, and on the back of the matchbook was a...
Let me read it if I could.
Sure.
It says, on the matched cover, it says, reward. The U.S. Department of State is offering reward of up to $2 million for information leading to his arrest. If you have information about Youssef, contact the U.S. Embassy or Consulate in the U.S., or contact the FBI, or call 1-800-HEROES-1, and that's at a P.O. Box in Washington, D.C. So the matches are here with the reward and a picture of Ramzi Ahmed Youssef.
We dropped a lot of these throughout the parts of Pakistan where we thought he might be, in Peshawar and in Islamabad. And sure enough, they did the trick. $2 million is a lot of money to any of us, and in that part of the world, it's a little bit more than a lot. And so somebody came forward, and that person was responsible for the apprehension of Ramzi Youssef. They are still alive. They are in this country, and they have $2 million. And it was well worth the investment. The other book of matches that's... so
here's another one. We'll go to the match, see if we can pick this one up, the same thing. So this is a...
This is Abdul Rahman Yassin. This is the individual whom we have never apprehended. He is... we put a $2 million reward out for him as well, but we never did get him. He's the one that probably died in Iraq.
What was his role in this?
He was part of the bomb building and obtaining of the materials to build the bomb as well. When we went to get, keep in mind that it was a 2-year change in time from 1993 because Ramzi Youssef wasn't arrested until 1995. And we say, what had he been up to during that time frame? He's truly an evil person. I mean, it's just, there's no other way around it. He was evil. He left, he got restless when he was in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and he wanted to do some more evil. So he went to the Philippines. He went to Manila. And the reason he went to Manila, it was kind of like a year when the President, Bill Clinton, and the Pope were each going to visit Manila. So he thought he could assemble a band of merry men once again,
Yep.
and murder Clinton and murder the Pope. It didn't exactly occur that way. He didn't have the opportunity to do that. But what he did do is he was, like all of these people, he wasn't a genius, but neither was he dumb. He was able to develop a timing mechanism from a watch and be able to make the watch go beyond that 12 hours, because every 12 hours it doesn't make much difference to the watch. It's just going around again. Yeah. He was able to develop a timing mechanism with a Casio watch whereby he could set the timing mechanism for like 17 hours. So it went beyond the 12. And in order to determine whether or not he was successful, he made a very small nitroglycerin bomb. He put it in the heel of his shoe. He took a flight from Manila to Tokyo. However, the flight stopped in Cebu, the island. What he did is, when they took off from Manila, he went into the restroom of the plane, took off the heel of his shoe, put this little tiny bomb together. It wasn't enough to blow the plane apart, but he wanted to test his timing mechanism. He came back to his seat. He put the bomb under the seat in front of him, set the watch. When the plane landed in Cebu, he got out. The plane took off from Cebu to Tokyo, and about an hour into the flight, the bomb went off. It killed the individual sitting in the seat. It was a Japanese man, and the man behind him, it blew his legs off. And so he was ecstatic. It worked. He knew how to set this. His idea was, and it's called the Bojinka plot, and it's well documented. His idea was to have at least 10 to 12 U.S. flagged flights coming from Asia to the United States to get bombs on every single one of them that would detonate over the ocean so that you'd never have any closure. You couldn't find them, and those kinds of things are catastrophic for the victims themselves and for the victims' families, and that's all part of terrorism. Well, while he goes back to Manila to start perfecting his craft, he, like all good bombers, and Guillermo Morales from Puerto Rico during the old FALN bombers, they all eventually bomb themselves. They do something to themselves, whether they blow their fingers off. In this particular case, he was making the bombs, and it got out of control. He blew the side out of the building that he was in.
Wow.
When he blew the side out of the building, off to the airport again, another trip to back into Pakistan.
So in other words, he quickly just
like left. I mean,
path.
they all have an exit strategy. He got on the plane and he left and he went back into Pakistan. That's the time when we saturated the air with the matches, and that was the time when we caught him in 1995. Now,
when you flew over, kind of an interesting story about the plane that you took. So share that, if you would.
When we determined we needed to get into, we had some contacts with the authorities in Pakistan. We did not want to fly in there in an American flagged plane. That's not always the best thing to do. So we had a U.S. Air Force, a nice gray 707. It's a pretty big plane. And we took 3 flight crews. We took an agent from the Secret Service and an agent from the FBI who were the real masters on Ramzi Youssef, who knew him inside out. And we took them. We took hostage rescue team members from the FBI's elite squad of HRT guys. We took about 6 or 8 of those folks. And I told FBI headquarters at the time, now I'll do this. We painted the plane, by the way. We painted the plane white with a red stripe on it, so my biggest fear, we did it in 36 hours. My biggest fear is as we landed in Islamabad, the paint started to peel off. That would be my biggest fear.
Because of the heat or something like that.
Or whatever.
So you painted a 747?
707.
707, an entire plane, white with a red stripe.
White with a red stripe.
So that you wouldn't be identified readily as a U.S. plane.
When we flew into, we stopped at Cairo. We refueled. We came up out of Dulles Airport, and as you well know, you can't take on a total fuel capacity when you're on the ground. The wings, because it's in the wings would be dragging on the ground as you took off. So we took off from Dulles, and 2 tankers, big tankers, out of McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey met us up in the air, and we topped it off with fuel in the air. I don't know if anybody in your audience has ever refueled in the air, but it is not something you want to go through. It's frightening. But these people do it as a living. I mean, they love it. The pilots are a different breed of cats, and they thank God for them. But that plane is jumping all around because you have to figure you're behind this tanker. He's on autopilot. He's as happy as a clam. You're coming up underneath his tail, and you got some young kid. You look up, and he's flying the boom to put into you. This kid, I think they got out of an arcade 2 days before this thing. I mean, he looked like he was 9 years old. I don't think he ever shaved. And he's fueling us. And you know, God bless them all. But we took the 2 fuels, went to Cairo, Egypt, and refueled again, timed ourselves so we could get into Islamabad around 11 in the morning. Brought Ramzi, arrested Ramzi Youssef, brought him back out to the plane. And then the biggest fear, a little story getting off the plane. When we got off the plane, I came off with the 6 HRT agents. I know how it is, but these guys know their trade. They do well. They practice every single day. So I'm walking in between 2 of them, and then there's 2 in front and 2 in back, and I see these guys getting very, very nervous. They're starting to crouch. They're undoing their big dusters like the cowboys used to wear, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, this is not going to be good. And I'm talking to a Pakistani official there, and I said, these people are unhappy, which makes me unhappy.
Yeah, you're nervous when they're
Yeah. And so he said, what's the matter? So I looked over and back at me. There were like 18 people with rifles, dressed like somebody from the Khyber Pass, you know, with the pantaloons and the turbans and the whole thing.
So you weren't sure
coming
whether
across
they were
on their bicycles. Coming across the
bicycles.
airport on bicycles.
Yes.
And so I said, to him, they're very nervous about these guys, and his only comment was, not to worry, they live over there, they work over here, they ride across the airport every morning. And I said, well, this morning I could all not be going
so
back
everybody
again.
around you is starting to feel for their weapons, right?
In any event, we were able to take Ramzi Youssef in. We built a little room on the plane. And then taking off from Islamabad, we went 26.9 hours nonstop all the way to Newburgh, New York, to the Air Force Base in the Southern District of New York.
And the reason I just want to interject that you went nonstop is if you stop in any country that doesn't have capital punishment, or if you stop in any country that would require you to check in, that's an opportunity to disrupt the legal flow of the prisoner back to the United States.
That's absolutely true. So coming back, we refueled 6 times. 2 out of Diego Garcia, 2 out of Mendenhall, Germany, and 2 out of Rota, Spain. Again, 6 more times refuel in the air. I had it. That was about all the fun I could take from my entire life.
And you had to be sure to land in the jurisdiction of the crime.
Right. We couldn't land in, everybody said, why not land in LaGuardia or Kennedy? They're in the Eastern District of New York, and we would have had to have a removal hearing with a whole judicial process. If we landed in Newburgh, the Southern District, we were able to just bring the prisoners right back into the Southern District without a removal hearing. And that's why we did what we did. One important part of this whole thing of delivering Ramzi Youssef back to his to justice in the United States is, as we're coming out of Newburgh, New York, they sent a good-sized helicopter. The Port Authority sent one up, and Ramzi is sitting beside me. There's another agent on the other side, and the 2 interviewers, the Secret Service agent and the FBI agent who interviewed him on the way back, are sitting across from him, facing him. So as we come, he's in a orange jumpsuit with a hood over his head, because I don't want him to see anything, and it's none of his business what this is all about. So as we're coming down the Hudson River, it's February 15th, very cold, but New York looks like a jewel. It's clear, it's icy cold, the lights down there are gorgeous. And as we get to the Empire State Building, I look out the front windshield and I see the Twin Towers lit up pretty well, so I take the hood off Ramzi Youssef, and I said, Ramzi, look at that. See down there? That's the Trade Center, and still standing. And his comment was, it wouldn't be if I had enough explosive and enough money.
Wow.
And I said to the two agents sitting over there, you might want to jot that down, because that was part of what convicted him. He confessed to the crime right there.
Wow.
They did a wonderful job. We had all kinds of evidence. His trial and the trial of another individual occurred in '95, where the other ones occurred in '94. The other 4 occurred in '94. And Judge Kevin Duffy was the presiding judge at the time. And Kevin did a lot of work to figure out, how am I going to sentence these people? What am I going to sentence them to? He did, all the actuaries came in and figured out how long these 6 people would have lived,
right,
had he not killed them. That figured into the sentence. In any event, after all the crimes that they were charged with and the computation of what the sentence could be, Judge Duffy came up with each one of them got 242 years in prison, with no possibility of
delighted, right?
no possibility of parole. I said, that does it for me. And they're all serving at Supermax in Colorado.
Wow. So we're going to look at some more pictures in a bit,
Sure.
but before we do it, I wanted you to just touch base about that time. What in today's era, we're worried about terrorism because we're seeing it front and center all the time. But if you travel back and sort of focus on history, share with us the amount of bombings going on right around that time in 1993.
Sure. I think the thing that comes to roost for us is this is the first time that foreign terrorism ever put their boot on the United States and set off a bomb. So for us, it was the first time anything like this ever happened. Not so for the rest of the world. The day before this bombing in New York City, there was a bombing of a cafe in Cairo that killed a number of people. 2 days later, there were bombings in Manila and in 2 other parts of the world. So the concept of radical Islamic extremism trying to build a caliphate by which they rule everybody all the time, and if you're not an extremist like they are, you die. It's as simple to them as that. There's no complication, there's no heart, there's no feeling. And what's going on in our world today with ISIS, and I have no doubt that within the next year to 18 months, ISIS will be obliterated. They'll be gone. Bottom line, huge problem. If you grab a hold of turf and you squeeze it to make a ball, what happens? A lot of it comes out from between your fingers. That's exactly what's going to happen when we obliterate ISIS. The worst of the worst are going to escape, and they're going to be in Europe because that's where they have all the identification to be there, and they're going to be in our country again. The challenge to law enforcement and, more importantly, to intelligence resources is going to increase dramatically during the next 5 years. That's my opinion. It's not going to be fun here, and we've done an excellent job, and the excellent job is done because when 9/11, we'll go to the next bombing. One of the criticisms during 9/11 was, you people weren't sharing information, you were you were actually dumb.
Right.
Well, the bottom line is that maybe they were dumb to say something like that because intelligence communities could not share information with law enforcement communities and vice versa. So I could be sitting on something, I don't know if it was valuable to you or not, but I should be telling you to see if you can evaluate the value. I couldn't do that or I'd go to jail. It was against the law to do that. And that's what people didn't realize. Subsequent to 9/11, Congress changed the law. But prior to that, it was a horrible set of circumstances. And I think that now, with our ability to share that kind of intelligence, you got NSA does a marvelous job, the agency does a marvelous job, the workings together with all the intelligence agencies and the law enforcement agencies is terrific. And we now have that kind of relationship with our foreign friends, where we share that kind of information so that we all come up to date. That's why we're going to be successful in the long run. Short term, we'll be successful in, I think, crushing ISIS, but we're going to have to face the worst of the worst who are going to escape into our societies.
All right, let's jump back to the photos, and I think
Sure.
Gina's got some more for us. So, Gina, do you have some up there? So
This particular photo kind of shows the devastation When we talked about the infrastructure running through the Twin Towers at that time, that's what happens. That's some of what happened. You see the rebar, the concrete collapsed, and if you see the pole that's going up to the left of the picture there, as you get up toward the top of the pole, you see that little piece of concrete sticking out. That represents where floors used to be.
Wow.
Maybe another one. Similar. You see there's a wooden ladder there, and so you can tell this isn't the same day as the explosion. But what happened after the bomb went off? It was very unsafe to go in there. As I said before, there were no lights. There was total smoke. The poisonous gases, over 2 million gallons worth of water running through there. Electrocutions were possible. It was tough. God bless the steel workers. They came in. Here's another one. You see the rounded top there on the left? That's where a floor used to be. They came in and started putting things together. They were swinging on ropes. They were climbing up and down. They were putting all kinds of things together in order to make it available to the investigators to get the evidence to convict these. They would just, there's some agents, I think that's probably on the B2 level as you go down down the ramp to the next level. And these that's a rough idea of what a bomb can do. That's an I-beam. You are not going to bend that real easily, and those rest of those bolts coming up to hold the concrete. It just warped that in a heartbeat when that bomb went off. Keep in mind, it was 1,500 pounds. There again, some of the infrastructure for Lower Manhattan running through the bottom of the Trade Center is incredible. Again, you say, how do they put this back together again? And I don't know. It's a mystery to me. I could never figure it out. Thank God there's a lot of smart people in the world that can do things like that. What happened, as I said, Secret Service, that's one of the Secret Service vehicles. Secret Service had 80 some odd vehicles in the B2 level because Secret Service's offices were in the Trade Center. And they had virtually no cars left when this one, it just tears them apart because the blast does one thing and the vacuum after the blast does something else. The blast opens the hood, the vacuum tears the underside of the hood back off again. So it looks like two separate things went off, and they actually do. There's a Jeep that's not looking real well. Tires are all gone, and I don't think that's going to drive again. There's Secret Service cars right there. See how it tears the trunks off and takes the windshields off. See the hood is popped up on the front of the car on the left. That red was on the B2 level. There is a clock. If the small hand is on the 12 and the big hand is on the 16, and that's when the bomb went off. I guess it was hanging on the wall. That's another thing it can do. You don't think about. Take the top right off the car. It looks like surgical removal of the top and the doors and everything else. That's what bomb blasts will do. And look, tires are still not flat. They're fine. You can never tell exactly what it's going to do. You got a worker in back with the red helmet on there and some other workers in the K level. Again, now you have to get all these vehicles out of there, and you have to figure, how am I going to get these vehicles out? And one of the side stories is now we have a group of Secret Service agents who do a terrific job. They're wonderful people. They don't have a car to drive.
So they're all on rentals now.
No, I had a garage full of cars that I took from bad guys and drug dealers and everybody else, and to transfer those from one agency in the federal government to another is a nightmare with the paperwork. I tried to simplify that a little with signatures and take the car, and there was a lot to be said afterwards for that. But here are the FBI agents and ATF agents and New York City Police Department investigators, forensic people. We bring people who are just trained for forensics. These two folks, there's an ATF guy and the two ATF guys looking through that. What they're doing is they're sifting the evidence, and the bigger pieces will stay in the top grade. The next level down is a screen that's a little more retentive. See, on this is the same thing. An ATF and an FBI woman. They are experts at forensic work, gathering all this because you don't know what piece is the most important. A little tiny piece like this scraped up off the floor could be part of a detonator. This, by the way, the detonator wasn't some electronic fancy thing. It was like a fuse and a stick of dynamite. They made it in a rubber hose and lit it and get out of the car.
How did they get away soon enough?
Well, they had a long fuse.
They had a long fuse, and they hoped that it would stay alive.
They did. There's some more damage to the infrastructure of the building. All the telecommunications people had a nightmare that day because that all went down. These are the people at the bottom of the hole cleaning up. And you have to lower all that equipment in because you just can't get it in there. You lower it in, you bring it down as far as you can, then drop it in with cranes. It was these people are magical people. Thank God for construction workers like that who know exactly what they're doing. But this is what you have to live with: artificial lighting because there's no electricity in the building anymore at this point. Masks because you don't know what chemicals are riding around in there, and everybody wore masks and whatnot. So it was a very difficult investigation, but they did a great job. This is a ramp, the ramp that comes out of that goes down to B1, and right where this fellow's standing with his mask on, it was pitch black, smoke all over the place. The fireman went in. He heard some voices beyond him, and went to go down the ramp, and there wasn't any ramp. He broke both legs as he fell to the next. Lucky he fell onto the concrete on the floor below rather than falling in the hole and continuing down 5 levels.
Wow.
Those are pieces. You see the scale is a foot there between the 1 and the 2. Those are the size, that represents the size of some of the pieces that were recovered that were absolutely critical to the investigation and the forensic work to tie pieces of the bomb thing back to these individuals.
So
Merrill Lynch gave us a part of their facility. They said, whatever you need, you have, and trying to find out where to store all that evidence. Those are boxes of evidence that probably represents maybe 10% of the evidence that we had to deal with, that laboratory people had to work with to determine what the relationship was to this evidence in the crime.
So what I'd like to do is take a break for a minute, and
Sure.
Gina, I want to roll the credits, and when we come back, I'd like you to sort of address your work with the media. What was the information that you
Sure.
were sharing, and how careful you had to be? So when we come back, let's take the credits.
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre, and the crew wants to thank Maxie's Delicatessen. That's at 117 Sharon Street in Stoughton. They're 781-341-1662. American Cancer Society, yes, they're looking for volunteers. Drive cancer patients to and from their treatments. 1-800-ACS-6662. Or just go to www.cancer.org. Ilsa Mark's Food Pantry in St. Anthony's Free Market, 2 Park Avenue in Stoughton. For more information, call Christine Gallagher. That's at 781-341-0611 or 781-341-0549. Meals on Wheels. Just ask for Jessica. You'll find her at 781-344-8882, extension 2. Stoughton Penny Saver. Our business is advertising your business, they tell us. 27 Rose Glen Street, Stoughton, 781-344-4833. Community Forum showtimes in Stoughton. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m., Monday at 8 p.m., Tuesday at 5 p.m. It's on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 28. All comments and suggestions welcome. Contact us at communityforum1@yahoo.com. Community Forum showtimes in Easton. Mondays at 9 p.m., Tuesday at 8 a.m., Wednesdays 3 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. And that too, Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 22. Samaritans, they're at 41 West Street on the 4th floor in Boston, 02111. Their phone number is 617-536-2460. 24-hour helplines for Samaritans, and the number is 877-870-HOPE. That's 877-870-4673. Samaritans, you can find them at 800-252-TEEN. That's 252-8336. Or find them online at SamaritansHope.org.
So I also want to announce for us Stoughton's own Farmers Market every Saturday 10 to 2. It's right up to October 1st. It's on the Stoughton Center Church Green, 790 Washington Street. We do a great job down there. We have live music. There's fresh produce from 2 local farms. Have weekly giveaways, double SNAP benefits, which are really nice. There's plenty of parking throughout the center. We ask that you don't bring any pets, though, Board of Health requirement. So please do come down and help build the community in Stoughton Center around Stoughton's own farmers market. And just right next to that is the Get Fresh Stoughton's Own cooking show using all of those Stoughton Farmers Market ingredients. So new episodes are coming soon. Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 28, Carlos Vargas and Sharon Fradkin will be there sharing with you great recipes using fresh food. That's Monday nights, 5:30 p.m., Wednesday at 8 p.m., Thursday, 9 a.m., and Friday, 5 p.m. And the food is good. So, do stay tuned to that. We also have here at Stoughton Media Access Corporation a hometown business show. And that's on Tuesdays at 11 a.m., Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m., Thursdays at 8 p.m., and Sundays at 7 p.m. Comcast Channel 9, Verizon Channel 28. If you'd like to be on that show, if you have a business and you'd like to get highlighted in the community, it's a free service of Stoughton Media Access Corporation. So give us a call and just say, hey, I'd like my business to be on here. I'm ready to educate the public and tell them what we do and things like that. So that'll be just great. So Monday night, you have bingo, a Harvard Torah congregation, 1179 Central Street in Stoughton. This is a great group, fun time for everybody. Doors open at 4:30, games start at 6:30. It's a great night to see your neighbors. And the Harvard Torah is just an absolutely incredible congregation. Welcome to everybody in the entire town and even out of town. And then now we're back in studio with William Gavin, former Assistant Director of the FBI New York. You can contact Bill at bgavs, that's bgavs, at AOL.com. So now we're back in studio, Bill. And I had a question about, before I do that, let me just give you another plug for this book, all right? We have this wonderful book, Pick Up Your Own Brass. I read the thing through and through. I highly recommend it. Leadership the FBI Way. And you and Kathleen McChesney wrote the book and talk about just the responsibilities of leadership.
That's it. Talking about leadership, a lot of people from the Bureau write a book, talk about the cases they worked on. We decided we want to write one on leadership. Good leadership and maybe not so good leadership that we encountered during our 30-year careers.
Wonderful, very nice. So one of the things that's curious for me, and before we get to some nice pictures that you have, additional pictures, how did you handle the media? The media is sort of chomping at the bit to find stuff out, and if you're not careful or you frame things poorly, you present information that isn't tried and true, you could threaten your investigation. You can also scare the public needlessly. Talk to us a little bit about what did you do about media? What did you do about teaming up all of these agencies, 15 or so agencies, 7 prosecutorial agencies. I'm going to try that word again, prosecutorial. All right, so you have a lot of people to work with.
Yes, we did have a lot of people to work with. And what I basically said to all the investigative and prosecutive agencies, look, this is not just an FBI case. Jurisdiction-wise, it is an FBI case. However, that's being a little narrow in concept because the FBI doesn't have all the expertise. Each one of the investigative and intelligence agencies are going to bring to the table their expertise that can make a good picture. I told them, look, I don't play timpani, I don't play reed, I don't play strings, I don't do any of that, but I know good music when I hear it. So I am the conductor of this orchestra. You got to give me your best in order to make it the best orchestra you've ever heard. And God bless them, they were fantastic. I set up an entire theater that we had there. Everybody had their own station, they had their own television, they had their own hookup for computers. And I told them every single morning at 10 o'clock and every single afternoon at 4 o'clock, we would do an update for everybody that was assigned, prosecutors and investigators. And I said, there will be no backroom deals between 2 or 3 of us who know more than you're going to know. I'm not going to work that way. I'm going to tell you everything. As far as the press is concerned, that's a little bit more of a challenge. As you well know, dealing with the press, they get some great investigators. Sometimes I wish I could put a badge on them and bring them into the investigation. They're so good. But if the fastest way to have the press get in the way is to keep them uninformed. Try to make them feel that they're not important, that you're pushing them aside, you're never going to tell them anything. Every single day I had a press conference. Joe Valacat, who was the press guy in New York for me, or I would do a press conference, and we would as candidly answer the questions, as candidly as we could, answer their questions. and bring them up to speed as in cases when we could, what we might be doing next. Nothing, we never told them anything that would jeopardize the investigation, but they didn't expect that. With that said, does that mean they just sat back and waited for us to? No, they're smart people. They know how to put their finger on the pulse and determine where they want to go. There's always a negative Paul. Why didn't you do? You should have known. Those kinds of things. Those are things you have to live with. And they may not be necessarily true, but it doesn't matter. It makes headlines and sells newspapers and makes people turn the TV on. But they, for the most part, they were pretty darn good. And with the United States Attorney's Office, Mary Jo White was the United States Attorney in the Southern District. She would hold conferences too, during which we would all be involved. Bill Bratton or Ray Kelly, whoever was the commissioner at the time. We had two of them. And the heads of all the organizations and Mary Jo, we would have news conferences together that were all looked at for content. So we did the very best we could. Did we tell the news media everything, and did some of them get in the way? Sure they did, but they were only doing their job. I can't be offended by that.
Well, what do you think that prepared you for, this whole experience as you moved on in your life?
I think, there's a number of things that prepared me for that. And at one part in my career...
Let me ask that question. That's a better question. What prepared you for that?
First of all, some of the training in the FBI, but for 5 years I testified as the FBI's expert in forensic serology. I was in the laboratory. And it gave you the ability to sit and talk and think on the seat of your pants, not just standing. And it gave you that ability to let people make points that they legitimately could make. That, when you're sitting there testifying as an expert, if there's certain things you can't say and a defense attorney says, you can't tell me this, you say, no, I can't tell you that, and be honest with them. The same as with dealing with the media. So that kind of confidence with people and talking to groups of people and other press conferences gives you the ability to sit down and talk with these people and maybe have some credibility with them. And they know when you're not telling them the whole story, but you tell them, I'm not telling you the whole story. Don't play games with them. That's what I always say.
So you're kind of like sharing the truth and being quite candid.
Right, and then when you can't tell them somebody, you tell them, I can't tell you that. I'm not going to, I think we saw some of that recently in the testimony before Congress. I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about that. As the director said on the investigation with the Clinton fund in Canada. I'm not going to talk about that, and he's not. That's the end of it, and that's the way you have to address it.
So, how'd you like to close out the show? I mean, we have just
I think maybe just
left.
two quick pictures. One is this picture, which is the picture was taken from the standpoint of where the Ryder truck was parked. And so that bomb blast tore through the steel wall. You can see how thick it was. It was 1.25 inches thick steel. It just blew it right away. And that's where 5 of the 6 people were killed. And then the very next one, this is the bottom of the hole. That's on level number 5. And this was 4 days later where we found the body of the final victim of this horrendous crime.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you very much for sharing. These are incredible photos, an incredible experience. I want to thank our audience as well. Roy Cohen, Gina Coe, Leo McGowan in the background. Thank you all, and thanks for watching Community Forum.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, Steve.